Well, I'm live and good evening, everybody. Happy Resurrection Sunday. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of Swerve with me. This is a show where we have adult conversations for mature audiences only. We talk to people who have overcome their challenges and they're not afraid to show their scars and to speak their truth. We have so much to talk about tonight. As you come in, join the live stream, share it, like it, invite somebody else to tune in tonight because tonight we're going on a journey where we will be talking to a young lady who has definitely overcome some challenges tonight. So come on and invite somebody in. Good night, Delarice. Good to have you on the live stream tonight. you know as I even reflect on this whole idea of the resurrection Sunday, and us as believers, and why we do what we do and the reason we're here, and the sacrifice that Jesus made just for us. I mean, what a wonderful privilege it is that we have someone that cared so much. John 3 and 16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes would not perish but have everlasting life. And then 17 says, for God sent not his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And we know, as we have experiences in our lives, and life throws us some blows, so many times people sit in condemnation of the things that happened in our lives. But we're grateful for this platform where we talk about what has happened, because we're overcoming. The scripture says we overcome by the word of our testimony and by the blood of the Lamb. And so having this opportunity to share encourages others to share and gives others an example, more importantly, of what God can do in someone's life. So it doesn't matter where we start, it's always where we end up. And so it's wonderful just to be here and to be alive at this time. I want to now present to some of you and introduce to others Kayleen. I'm sorry, not Kayleen. That's your mom. I'm looking at her name and calling her good night, Miss Kayleen. Latanya. Good night, Latanya. I want to welcome Latanya Maynard. Looking at her name and saying, hey, come on,
Hey,
somebody invite someone in. It's so good. Latanya is what I call someone who has not only overcome childhood trauma, but she's a survivor of domestic violence. And more importantly, she is a victim's advocate. She's also an entrepreneur. And I believe her most important role is that of a mother to Braden, her soon to be teenage son. And so we just have a lot of ground to cover. And her apparel line, Know Your Worth. I mean,
right?
that's been blazing and doing so well. So we have so much ground to cover tonight. So Latanya,
Yes.
welcome, welcome, welcome to Swerve with me.
Thank you for having me. Good night, audience. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm sure you will be in for a treat. A lot of people, especially my Facebook friends, they're gonna hear some things about me tonight that they probably weren't aware of unless they've read my book. But I'm just so excited. This is my third time this week sharing my story, and
Wow.
more and more I share the story, my story that is, the easier
Yeah.
it gets, and I'm healed, and God is
And you
good.
yeah, yeah, God is faithful. So let's roll it back. Your story begins in New Providence, where you were born, but you later your family moved to Eleuthera, and you were in a two-parent
Yes.
family, raised with siblings. And your earliest recollection of trauma began around about 5 or 6 years old. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Okay, so at the age of 5 years old, I experienced adverse childhood trauma due to seeing my mother being physically abused by my father. Um, it was happening, according to her, 2 weeks after she got married to my dad. But of course, I wasn't born until 2 years later, and I didn't understand what was going on until about 5. I think 5 is the beginning of the development phase when children start to sense
Mhm.
things.
So
Yeah.
did you
And so
actually did you see him hit her, or was it the way he spoke to her? What was it to your recollection at such a young age that impacted you so deeply?
so yes, I saw the physical abuse. I saw it. And that is why, I was adversely affected. And honestly, it affected me through my um adolescent years, and I would say even in my adult years. But yes, I saw him physically abuse her. And every time I saw him do it, I would cry hysterically.
Did your tears or your crying at any moment kind of shake him, or cause him to stop what he was doing? Or were you in another room crying away from what was happening?
No, I would cry in the front of both of my parents. But I wouldn't say that that stopped him. I was
Yes.
really concerned. I was really concerned about my mother
Mhm.
safety. Because like
So
one time it happened, I didn't see her till the next um day. I don't want to really, give too much because I really want people to read my book. But
right.
yeah, there was some horrific um things that occurred, and that's what made me cry
Mhm.
hysterically because I really was concerned about her. I was concerned about my mother from then, and that's probably why we the way we are. We close.
How
Mhm.
long do you recall this happening? How many years was this happening? And was your response the same all of the time? And then before you go on, how did you see that impacting you in your day-to-day life? Because you were a kid and you were in school. In
Yes.
hindsight, did that have any impact on your relationships in school?
Mhm. Okay, so it occurred for about another, I would say 3 to 4 years because they got divorced when I was 10.
Mhm.
And yes, every time it happened, I responded the same way. And how it affected me in school is I went to school. I was troubled I was a troubled child. I won't say based on behavior. My behavior wasn't an issue. I think just I was sad. I was sad because of what was going on in the home. And then I discussed it with teachers, and they wasn't as sympathetic as I wanted them to be. And I think it was because they didn't know how to be.
Okay, so you literally told your teachers what was happening in your home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and
And I
this is on
remember,
the island of Eleuthera, right? This is on
yeah,
Eleuthera.
this was on the
So
island of Luther.
there wasn't really much interaction or intervention rather from the
No,
teachers or any other authorities for that fact.
no. Mom and dad went to marital counseling with the priest, the Anglican priest. And we did a little bit of it too. And then me and my sister, we went to the Catholic school, and the principal, I was speak with her a lot. But like I stated, there was only so much they can do. And they really didn't have the resources and the tools. And I don't didn't know how to counsel children my age
So
at the time.
after the divorce and your parents separate, what was your life like? And did you often reflect on what had happened to your mom in the past, or you were able to just move along from there?
I often reflected, on what happened to her. I really did. And then my mother, right after she divorced my father, she moved to Nassau, Bahamas for about a year or two, to kind of get away from the talk. And when you live in a small um settlement or on a small island, people talk. So
Mm-hmm.
we stayed with my father for that time. And again, I would say I was troubled. At the age of 13, I wrote a letter saying that I wanted to end my life because I didn't understand why my parents separated. And I think children, most children want, would wonder why their parents aren't together because, I mean, God really designed man and woman to be together, through marriage, of course. And even a lot of times children just they just aren't able to understand, well, why did mom and dad separate? Even my son, I'll use him as an example. That was his question a lot of times. Or he'll say, well, mom, you know what you think it'll be like if you and dad were together. So I think that's a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so I was, like I said, at 13, I wanted to in my life at 13. So I wrote a letter, and the letter was found by a family member, and they kind of asked why and all of that, but why wasn't really the answer. I needed therapy, but they couldn't give that to me.
So how did you manage to work your way past that feeling of wanting to take your own life? Um, at that time, 13, so young. How did you, and you didn't get therapy. So how did you work past that?
Mm, mm.
Or did you?
The only the only well, temporarily, I don't, to be honest, I don't know. I really don't know. I would only say the grace of God, because um there wasn't no therapist to who can help me through my childhood trauma. Like I said, there were just adults like the priests and the Catholic school principal, and then family members. So yeah, I
Did
know
you ever
their own.
talk, did you ever talk to either one of your parents about how you were feeling
Yes, as I got older, my mother, but not my
at
father.
not that
Mm-mm,
time? So, one of the things that we discussed during our pre-interview was the fact that as a teenager, you started to date adult men,
mm-hmm,
but your mother was totally not aware of what you were doing. So, at 15, you started to date someone who was 20 something, a
mm-hmm,
police officer for that fact. First of
mm-hmm,
all, what was it that attracted you to somebody that old? If you even knew what that was at 15,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
how did you get away with dating him and your mother didn't know?
Well, what a try. You know what? I told you during our pre-interview that I think I was looking for that father figure. Um, I was yearning for that a bit. And that's probably what attracted me to that older guy. And as far as how I got away with that, listen, that's what the average teenagers was doing back then. My friends, we would they would make sure that I go and meet him and stuff like that. You'll tell mom you're going to this friend's house, but then you're doing other stuff. So that's what I was doing then. Yep.
And so how long did you date him before your mom found out? And how did she find out that you were dating this older man?
I dated him for almost a year. And how she found out, they talk, of course, people talk. And that's how she found out. And oh, like I said earlier, she tore me up. She tore
So
me up.
so it was somebody in the community who saw
Yeah,
you with this guy and they told your mother.
yeah. And I used to go to his job. And I don't know, it could have been someone from there too who told.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
So that came to an abrupt end.
Yeah,
That
that
relationship came
came,
to an
that
abrupt
came.
sudden end. And So you move on. So you're like 15, 16 at the time, and you're in high school, obviously, because
Mhm.
most people graduate at 16 or 17
Right,
from
right.
high
I
school. So
graduated at 16 and a half.
you graduated at 16, and then you relocated to New
Nassau.
Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you left, and so going into Nassau, developing, did you go right into the college in the Bahamas, or what were you doing at 17?
Well, so I stated I relocated to Nassau and I was staying with my grandmother. And the plan was for me to become a police officer. That was the original plan. So college was never a factor that I wanted to become a policewoman. But um, my cousin found me a job at Solomon's, and then I started working at Solomon's. And and in the midst of me working at Solomon's, my mom, well, she was going to the AME church, and I got a scholarship.
Mhm.
Well, that was later on, but I worked at Solomon's until that time came for me to relocate here to Jacksonville.
So you worked at Solomon's, and then you met another older man
Yes, I
again,
did.
and
Yeah.
started now. How much older? When did you meet him? How old were you? And how much older was he than you?
I was 17, so he was in his 20s too. He was in his 20s. I
Okay.
was. He probably was about 20, maybe 27 or 28. Yeah. Well, actually, you know what? Even older, because he went to school with one of my cousins. Well, she knew him actually, so he was
Mm.
older.
Okay. So you start dating this guy
Yeah.
again. And
I,
what was that relationship like at 17 with this somebody probably like at least 10 years older than you?
in the beginning, it was good, but then it turned toxic. Um, because I later found out that he was married and he also had other girlfriends. Um, at the time, I don't really know if him and his wife were having issues. I don't know that because I went by his house several times and I never saw any traces of anyone living there.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
mhm.
So how long had you been dating him before you found out that he was a married man?
um, I think it was 3 to 4 months. 3 to 4 months. What happened was my aunt, someone told her, well, actually, my aunt's cousin was showing her some pictures of a wedding that she went to, and him, the guy, he was in that wedding, and my aunt said to her, "Oh, there goes Latanya's boyfriend," and her cousin was like, um, "That can't be her boyfriend because he has a wife." But by then, I had already found out, but I was just distraught. I was devastated. So I didn't want to
So
say nothing to them.
did you end the relationship after you found out that he was
No,
married?
no, I didn't end it right away. Mm-mm.
Okay, so how much longer did you stay, and did what
Probably
was that
about
conversation like? Like when you
what?
told him, I know you're married, like what was that conversation like?
Mm, I was like, why you didn't tell me? And because you should have let me make that choice about where I want to stay or go. And he was like, because I knew if I would have told you, you would have left. So
Mhm.
that is what that conversation was like. Not really, not an apology or anything, but what made me leave is he became violent with me one night when me and my cousins were out, and
Mhm.
he hit me across the face, and that's what made me leave.
Okay, so
Mhm.
one and you were done. One hit and you were out of
one
there.
one and I was done. Yep, one
Right.
and I was done. And then um after my aunt said to me, Once she told me, she was like, "Well, did you know so and so was married?" And I said, "Yes, I found out not so long ago, but I just didn't want to tell y'all because I was I was hurt and devastated. But then still, I was trying to get him to come and pick me up from my grandmother's house and all of that. But that one slap that made me leave. That was the factor right there to say, okay, this thing, you know, you got to go. He's crazy.
Did that also remind you of what had happened to your mother in the past?
Yes, it did. Hmm.
Mhm,
And I was saying to myself, I'm too young for this, and and this he's married anyway, regardless of what he's telling me. So
mhm,
this isn't healthy for me. This is toxic, and the generational curse is trying to follow me. Well, even though I didn't know back then that it was generational, I
mhm,
saw it as I got older.
mhm. So you got out of that relationship and then you went to college eventually and
Mm-hmm.
started dating in college, and this is where you met your husband and later married your husband.
I met him during my senior year. I was doing internship because I majored in criminal justice, and I met him the last year of my college years. And yeah, we got married. Um, actually, a few months before we had a wedding for family members and friends. But
And you
boy,
were
oh
how
boy,
old? You were how
when
old at the time?
I was 21 years old, too young.
And how old was he?
He was 35. He was 14 years older than me. So 20, yeah, is that 14 years? 21 and 35. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you stayed on this track of dating older men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. Were there any similarities between at least these three men that you had dated so far, ultimately one becoming your husband, but in hindsight, can you see any similarities in their personalities, their temperament, anything like that?
No, because okay, my ex-husband, he was a very quiet person. And I didn't know that he was an angry person. I mean, I
Mhm,
saw that later in the marriage, but when we were dating, he never ever raised his voice at me or raised his hands at me. I saw that a year after we got married.
what was the trigger for that type of behavior to manifest?
Mm. Um, my ex-husband was extremely jealous. He was the type of person. I was 21. I honestly, I still was communicating with college friends, and no, and they weren't like boyfriends or anything. But 21. I'm 21 years old. I'm not that mature yet, like you
Mhm,
want me to be. And he didn't want me going to college functions. And then even with family members, he was really stupid. Um, if he didn't like something they said or did, that caused an argument. And that's actually the first time he put his hands on me, that we had an argument at our place. I can't even remember what the argument was all about, but he hit me. He slapped me across the face, and I went in the room for an entire night. And I
mhm.
probably should have had the same attitude, one and done, but I didn't. I stayed. I stayed for at least another 3 years before I decided to leave him.
How often was he hitting you?
Once he hit me the very first time, and he saw that I was gonna stay and put up with it. He did it again once we moved back to Jacksonville, because we was in Georgia at that time, and he did it when we came back to Jacksonville. And he hit me because a very good, well, this is one of the other times why the reason why he did it. A very good friend of mine had passed away. Well, she was dying, and me and my other friends decided that we wanted to spend that time together to grieve. She passed, and I came home about 12 o'clock that night, but I was communicating with him. So he was very unsympathetic. I was communicating with him to tell him what had happened, and he seemed fine. When my friend came to drop me home, he wouldn't let me in the house. Okay, he closed the door and told me that I wasn't gonna come in the house, so I had to spend the night by her house. Okay, um, she brought me back the next morning. She didn't come and walk to the door with me because I didn't let her. Well, she saw that night that he wouldn't let me in the house, but I didn't share I didn't want to share that part of our problems with my best friend. I didn't even share it with my family members. But the next morning when I got back home, he put his hands on me, and I had to go to work that day. So I went to work. Not only was I grieving the death of a very good friend, but I was also grieving being beat up by my husband. And I had to go to work and still perform and still smile and say hey, hello, hi, and all of that. So that's what I dealt with. And
Now,
also, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, did you have the job that you have now back then, or you had a different job?
No, no, I had an average job back then. Hell yeah, I was a customer service representative at a gas station.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you ever fight back? Did you ever try to lash back at him or anything?
Um, no, mm-mm.
You never
No,
did.
I didn't. No, I never did. And a lot of people they'll say, well, why did you let him do that to you? Hey, when you in something, a lot of times you fight back, and then sometimes you don't fight back. And also, he forced himself on me sexually. Like those are the kind of things he would do to me as well.
But
Hmm.
I guess I mean, some people say that's your husband, your body is his. So what do you say to that?
Well, if somebody's abusing you, and if I and you want to be intimate with me after you beating me down, I don't want to be intimate with you.
Mhm.
So that's, and by right I shouldn't.
Mhm. Was there, do you know now in hindsight why you stayed for the 3 years that you did or so?
Well, we had a lot of counseling. We had a pastor counseling us, and we also went to a therapist. And I'll never forget this. Both of those people, the pastor and the therapist, they told me when they, because they counsel us separately, then they counsel us together. They both told me that they knew I was gonna, I couldn't stay with him because it's like he couldn't reason. They would, I mean, I remember the pastor saying to him, you can't put your hands on her. You know, that's not the way you need to do it. And the therapist, the same thing. I even had to call the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. That's
Mhm.
our police department here in Jacksonville, to come to my rescue because he wouldn't let me leave the house. And I knew one of the officers because she would come to the gas station while I was working. And I'll never forget. Um, they told him, they said, you cannot make her stay in. And if we come back, we're going to arrest you. So I saw her months down after, we had separated, and she said, I knew you wasn't gonna stay with him because he couldn't understand. He couldn't, when
Mhm.
we kept telling him that he couldn't keep you in the home and he couldn't control you like that, he wouldn't understand. He just didn't. Not wouldn't, he didn't want to.
So, what was the straw that broke the camel's back for you when you decided to finally walk away?
Okay. The straw that break the camel back was one night he fought me and I called my sister. And she was like, she had her husband to bring her there, and she said, we ain't having it no more. She was like, you leaving tonight. She wanted to fight him. Her husband had to stop her from fighting him and going to jail that night. She was like, this is it. She was like, and you're not going back. And I think that was it, because I was tired. I was just tired of having to not tell my family members what was going on, and lying to, not really lying, but keeping it away from friends and being unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
No, your happiness, you know what? No one is worth your happiness. No, absolutely no one. And that back now, that would have said either or he was going to die, because it's only so much a person could take.
Mm-hmm. Did you, after you left, were you ever fearful that he was going to come after you or anything?
Or he did come after me. So months later, I started dating. Well, we were just friends, getting to know each other. Braden's dad, that is. And we were headed to one of these um parks, like by the water, and he followed us. So followed us, and I had to contact the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the Florida Highway Patrol, um and let them know that he was following me, and it was just so embarrassing. I was like, wow. I had those people calling me to make sure I was okay. And then one time he saw me riding down a particular road, and he turned around to follow me. Oh man, he kept doing that for the first couple of months, because he wanted us to reconcile. But I told him I wasn't coming back. I was like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not coming back.
Did he ever go to
Hmm.
jail? Did you ever press charges against him?
No, no, he didn't go to jail. And then the Florida Highway Patrol, they couldn't locate him. Yeah, but and then I didn't know back then about the domestic violence shelter. I didn't know nothing about filing injunctions, none of that.
Okay. So how looking back on that, how has that experience being abused in the marriage, how has that impacted your life and the decisions that you make about dating men moving forward?
Oh man, how did it impact my life? I the relationships after, they were still toxic, but it wasn't physically. It
Okay.
was probably emotionally and verbally,
Hmm. Hmm.
more so
So
emotionally and verbally.
so how
Go ahead.
how how have you changed as a woman? How have you changed as a result of those experiences of being in abusive relationships, whether physical or emotional? How has that changed you? Because I want to bring in the fact that you now are a victim's advocate. I mean, that's what you do. So, how did it
Mm-hmm.
change you? And did it prepare you for what you're doing right now?
Well, one of the things I did was form Know Your Worth Ministries and Know Your Worth Apparel. That was formed in 2016. And my book here, All Hope Is Not Lost, was the factor behind me creating it. This is my life story. In this book, you can read everything that I just, and more, with everything that I just discussed with you. I formed Know Your Worth Ministries in 2016. And
Mm-hmm.
I shared my experiences of, of course, being in unhealthy relationships. Its purpose is to educate, encourage, and empower women about knowing their self worth, and all based off of the pains that I discussed with you earlier, childhood trauma, that is, and adulthood experiences of feeling undervalued, and then, you know what, I could say most of my life. Um, I felt undervalued. So that's that's why I created the movement or the ministry. And I want
So
women,
let's talk about
especially.
that a little bit. You said
Mhm,
all of your life you felt undervalued.
mhm.
Explain what you mean by feeling undervalued. What does that look like for you?
Well, in the relationships and my choices of men, I don't know. It's almost like I had something on my forehead to say, go ahead and date her so you can just treat her any kind of way, or just treat her the way, just don't treat her like the woman she should be treated. It's almost like I had a sign on my head. I don't know. Some of it could be generational, because also I didn't share this earlier, but most of the women in my family, they weren't in healthy relationships. They really weren't. I grew up seeing my aunts being in very toxic relationships. They themselves experienced domestic violence. And then I saw some of my other aunts in unhealthy relationships, and other women in my family. So I think some of it was generational too. But I
Mm-hmm.
decided to change that. I decided to change that by um now because I formed this movement. I i now I'm very careful in my choices of men. you know if it's like, if you come in to play games with me, I spot it out right away. My tolerance level isn't there like what it was years ago.
What are some of the things for someone listening or who will be watching this program? What are some of the red flags that you can say about, based on the men that you've dated, that you can give to someone who may be in that type of relationship or about to make a decision to date someone? Can you give us anything that will help someone to avoid stepping into a potentially abusive relationship?
Okay. Well, one of the things is, one of the red flags is, you have to be careful of a man who don't take you who would never offer to take you by their home or to meet their family members. That's some of the things I experienced. And
Mm-hmm.
or they would disappear for weeks, or you don't hear from them, or when you try calling their phone, it's turned off,
Mm-hmm.
or um you know they threaten you, but in a jokingly way. Don't take that lightly. um Let me see what else I can say. Because as I stated, none of these guys who physically abused me, it's like it came from out of nowhere. I didn't really see any immediate signs. But like in relationships, those few things that I just told you, like not taking you to meet family members, always coming up with excuses, or about, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, or I'm always working, or not answering their phones, things like that. They are red flags.
Mm-hmm.
That they're either with in a relationship with someone else, or they're not interested in you. And those are some of the things too in the beginning of my relationships. If I would have just paid more attention to those, then I might not have been as hurt as I was when I found things out later.
Mm-hmm. You found things out later. So,
Yeah.
as in your work, without giving the details because you can't, but in your work as a victim's advocate,
Hmm.
how do you manage? Because you yourself being what I would call a survivor,
Hmm.
how do you manage listening to victims all day, and how are you able to separate that from who you are, and does it take you back to a painful time? I mean, how do you manage that?
Well, I was just sharing this with a friend last week. Sometimes there are triggers for me. when I hear certain stories, it takes me back to where I once was. I
Mhm.
don't, of course I don't cry or anything. I'm past that part, but it triggers me a bit. Um, I have to take days off. I have to do a lot of self-care. um I would, like I was telling you earlier, I would come home, and my home is a safe haven for me. I would, me and mom and Braden, or just me and Braden, sometimes I just come and give my son a hug and ask him how his day was, or I'll talk to mom. We'll find things to talk about, and that's what takes my mind off of it. Or I'll talk to my friends, and I'll just say, well, I had a rough day and I just want to wind on, relax, and let's talk about something good, because
Mhm.
it is a lot, and it's very very mind consuming, and it can take a toll on you, and I don't want to bring that all of that here in my home. It's a lot, because then, even though I have to let it go when I step foot in my door, I have to pick back up the next day, and I don't know what I'm going to be faced with the next day. So it's a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I do a
And
lot of self-care. I would encourage anybody who's in that field to do the same thing.
okay, so what do you let's talk about self-care. What are some of the things that you're doing for self-care?
Well, for self-care, I, you know what, I work on know your worth things.
Mhm.
I'm currently writing books 3 and 4.
Mhm.
So what I'll do is go on the computer and start writing a bit. I'll lay in my chair until I want to go to bed, and I would watch TV. Let me see what else I would do. As I stated, me and mom will talk, or me and Braden. Um, I'll go and spend a little time with him, or go out to eat. I go out
Mhm.
to eat too. Yeah.
What do you do for
Those
fun?
some What do I
What do
do
you
for
do
fun?
for fun just to get away from it all?
Oh, well, let me see what I've done. Well, actually, me, mom, and my sister, we have been taking a lot of vacations out of town, even if it's just for the weekend. Um, I would do something like that. And I would go out to eat with my friends. Yeah, that's pretty
Mhm.
much it. That's what I'm doing for fun right now. Or I might take, and I like to shop when I can, because I love clothes.
So let's talk about your Know Your Worth brand and what is the message? What are you saying to women when they see Know Your Worth? What are you saying to them? What are you saying to
What I'm saying to them is that you are worth it. You are worthy. That's the key words. You are worth it. You are worthy.
them? Hmm.
And then
And
also, but go ahead.
you go ahead.
I just wrote on the little index cards a few words that I think I'm going to, every show that I'm on, I think I want to say these words. And even when I go on my Facebook and do little videos, because I've been starting to do videos, even if they're nothing but 2 or 3 minutes, to encourage the women. But I read this on a show I had this week, and I want to read it now. So this is what I'm saying to women. I'm saying, you are valuable. You are loved. You are deserving. You are needed. You are important. You are beautiful. You are powerful. You are enough. Always remember who you are.
That's really really good. The For the woman who is in that day-to-day abusive relationship,
Hmm.
uh, and she, whether it's physical or emotional,
Hmm.
how what can you say to her? I know you said you're powerful, you're valuable, but how can she get out of it? How
Okay.
how can she get out?
Well, one of the things I would, let me give your audience some tips on how I got out, and then I'll also use some safety planning tips. Well, one of the and this is the strangest thing. As I stated, I knew nothing about the domestic violence safe shelter here or the 1-800 number that we use. I knew nothing about that, but this is what I started doing. When I decided that I was going to leave my ex-husband, I had my friend to pick me up to open a bank account. Now, those are some of the things we would tell women who are in abusive relationships to do. You need to get with a neighbor, family member, or friend to tell them, whenever you can, what's going on with you. A trusted family friend, neighbor, or friend that is.
Mhm.
I had my friend to come and get me to open up a bank account because I knew I was leaving. And the thing about it is I didn't tell her that I was leaving. I just did that. But we would encourage women who are in an abusive relationship to tell a trusted family, friend, or neighbor what their plans is. Also, I would encourage them to pack bags, but do not put that bag in your back trunk. You need to take that bag to that trusted neighbor, friend, or family member's home. Always have your cell phone charged in case you have to call 911. Identify safe areas in your home. Never go in the bathroom or the kitchen area because the kitchen has weapons. The bathroom, an abuser can hit your head on the tub or the vanity sink. Always take your important documents. Start doing these things one by one. My ex-husband didn't know what I was doing. I was taking important documents, and I was sifting through the things that I knew I wouldn't need, and he didn't have a clue. Keep those things in a safe area. If you have a post office box, keep them there. And so if you have to leave that situation, you they would have already been in the PO box. All and if you have children, that is, of course, you want to teach those children safety measures. You want to teach them how to contact 911. um Always call 911 before you call anyone else. Also devise a code word. For an example, if you were my very good friend, I would say, okay, Miranda, if I ever call you and tell you that I need pineapples, you know that I don't eat pineapples. So that's a cry for help. Um,
Mhm.
you would also tell your neighbor, trusted friend or family member that, hey, if I call you and you don't hear anything, I need you to check on me because that can mean that I'm in danger and I need help. So those are some of the safety measure tips we safety plan with victims with.
Mhm. That's a lot of strategic planning, obviously,
Yeah,
and obviously it has to be done over a period of time because for
yeah.
somebody who abused and probably not in the right frame of mind, one little
Mhm.
slip could mean the difference between,
Right.
life and death.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that.
why you can't. Yeah, you cannot do that all at once because I couldn't let my ex-husband know that I was leaving. That's why I started with separating his things from mine, but he wasn't aware.
He wasn't aware. So
No.
how long did that process take you when you started to gradually begin moving things?
Um, that took me a few months because what? Let me tell you, my escape was. Now remember, my escape was um then he let me know this what my escape was. He told me to get out. Everybody don't have that escape measure.
Right.
When he told me to get out, that was my opportunity to call my sister to come and never return. Everybody don't have that option. That is
Mhm.
why we suggest, though. Well, first of all, you can't make calls when an abuser is home in the house. They have to leave at some point. They either got to leave to go to work or to go to the store, wherever. Those are the times when you have to plan your escape route. That's why we teach preparation. All of those tips that I just gave, they are preparation tips.
Mhm. Mhm. So, in the midst of what you've experienced, would you say it's made you a better person? And I'm going to read some of these comments. Wait, let me just go to the comments because your mom, she's so proud of you. And one of the things she says, women, please know your worth and do not settle for less than you deserve.
That's so true.
And don't settle for less than you deserve. Um, uh, she said, you got your power back, Joba. Thomasina Mendez said, thank you, Lord, for breaking generational curses. Your auntie Leela says she's proud of you. What else?
I
Just
can't
so
see
many proud of you. And there are just a lot of things just really cheering you on and people
them.
agreeing with you what you have to say. As you continue to move along with the person that Latanya has become and is becoming a victim's advocate, a woman's advocate for that
Mhm,
fact, and just helping people to feel better about themselves and
mhm.
on their self-image and their self-worth and their value. What are some of the things that you see for you? Like, what have you not done yet that you want to do? Where are you going? Where are you headed?
Oh, well, I'm gonna say this, and I've been saying this for a few years. I'm gonna go to Oprah.
Okay.
I see myself being interviewed by Oprah and her asking me about, know your worth and what it's all about, and pretty much the same way that you're asking me. I see myself traveling all over the world to women's conferences to, share my story and helping to set others free. I see myself going home eventually to pour back into our country, that is the Bahamas. And I see myself going into the schools and also colleges to speak to young women on knowing their worth, those things. I see it, I see it, I see it. I see great things ahead.
When you mentioned going and speaking to the young women and going back into schools, what would you tell your 15-year-old self? What would you say to your 15-year-old self who was just getting into this whole thing about dating an adult man and didn't really know who she was, much
Mhm.
less who the man was? But what would you say today to your 15-year-old self?
That I wish I had someone like me who can share their story and experiences.
Mhm.
That's basically it. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of the things I've went through because it was for purpose and destiny. We
Mhm.
all have a story, and a lot of times we don't like how our stories may begin. We might not like the middle, and we might not like the end. But the thing is, it's all for someone else. That's why it happened. And I don't want me to be glorified through my story. um I want God to be glorified, and I want people lives to be transformed. I want someone to say, it was because of me hearing your story that I was really going through, but it gave me the courage to come out of whatever situation I was in. Or or a mother saying to her daughter, oh, I want you to read this young lady's book, or whatever it is. I just want what I have to say and the things I've went through to bless others. I want my message to resonate with people who need it.
Mhm. I want to keep talking to this 15-year-old out there who, like you, is searching for
Mhm,
love, and looking for
mhm,
love from
mhm,
a father figure that she lacks in her life. What
mhm,
what does she need to look out for? What do you say to her? Like, knowing what you did and didn't do.
mhm.
Speak to that 15, that teenager who's out there looking for love. Speak to her.
Well, I want to say this. First of all, you have a lot of time to find love. Don't be so much in a hurry to find love. Be aware of older men that are trying to befriend you. Be careful of motives. First of all, find out, why would you even approach me as a 15-year-old girl? What is it about me that you think is okay? What it is that you see in me that you think is okay for you to approach me? That's first and foremost. And um, you know, that's what I would say. Don't rush anything because you have a lot of time to find love. I back then I thought I wanted all of that, and you know, come to find out that wasn't it. But as I stated, I had to go through these things so I can talk to the 15-year-old, the 16-year-old, the 17-year-old, the 18-year-old, the 19, the 20, the 21. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with your father? Is he still alive?
Absolutely. I have a relationship with my father and I love my father. I do. Because a lot of even the situation between him and my mother, it wasn't all his fault. He went through some childhood trauma as well.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you were able to forgive him and still have a healthy relationship with him, right? Something is going on with your eyes.
Yeah, my eyes is probably the allergies, but it's okay. I'm
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
So
But yeah,
you were able to forgive him and you have a healthy relationship with him right now.
yes, I do. I do. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever talk to him about the
Yeah.
impact of what he did to your mother and what it's had on your life?
Yes, but let me say this. When I wrote my book, he was very upset with me.
Sure.
Yeah, he was very upset with me. He was extremely upset with me. He didn't like the fact that I put it out there. And also there were family members who were upset with me because they said I should have, kept that part personal. But guess what? It's not about them. It's about me and my story. And it's about breaking generational curses.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't I couldn't be I really couldn't be worried about their thoughts.
Mhm.
Because see, some people want to stay stuck. I want to be free. And
Right.
you don't obtain freedom by holding things in.
So, okay, so y'all, Leela Cash says, Mommy used to say, you have a short time to be a child and a long time to be an adult.
Hmm.
And Joba says transparency, yes, being transparent. So as you continue to build Know Your Worth Ministries and you work with victims advocates, what's missing? Like because you're in the trenches with victims day to day, even as far as if not the system, the whole conversation about how do people cope and deal with domestic violence. Is there anything that's missing in the conversation that people need to know about victims?
Um, Let me see if there's anything missing. You know what I found out by talking to a lot of the victims, a lot of it is um generational. Um a lot of it is like I had a conversation the other day with someone, and what the abuse resulted from their husband being on drugs since the age of 13. So
Mhm.
it's like, and I want to say, I feel sorry for the perpetrators, that is, because a lot of it isn't just they came from brokenness. That's what I want to say. That's what's really missing, and that's what's not being talked about. Broken, it's people who are victimized and people who are perpetrators is just a bunch of broken people.
Mhm. Hurt
They,
people
they,
hurt
yeah,
people.
hurt people hurt people. people, basically. That's really what I want to say. Hurt people hurt people. And those are the conversations that we're not having. But I do know what I like lately is, like, you have a lot of people like therapists and other people who are in that field. They're now beginning to realize that family dysfunctions is the cause of it. We weren't talking about that years ago, but now it's like it's coming to light. This is why these things are happening. And like, even when mom was experiencing domestic violence, um it was not until we came here and just started talking about the generational curses and dysfunctions that we even realized that was the reason why she was experiencing domestic violence. And the other people in my family was family dysfunctions. We didn't talk about those things back then.
So you recommend that families begin to talk, to begin to
Yeah,
open up and share
yeah,
with their sons and daughters.
yeah. I recommend that. It brings healing. And you know what? Even if people aren't ready to talk about something right there and then, give them time, and they'll be ready at some point. Because
And
I
and,
didn't
and I think
get this. Go ahead.
I said, and I believe that is where most people, if from our culture,
That's
we
all.
the Bahamian culture does not promote openness. We all
No.
know that. We we
Mm-mm.
we don't promote it. If you asked questions as a child, they thought you were being too forward, or
Mm-hmm.
you were being rude, et cetera, et cetera. And it's changing. It is evolving nowadays. But how do you recommend, from your professional standpoint, that somebody begins to introduce that type of conversation in their family?
Well, family therapy. I'm an advocate for family therapy. If you have to address the issue with a counselor, if you don't want to address it with certain people in the family, try counseling. Yep,
Mhm.
try counseling, or see if you can talk to someone who you believe that will understand your point, and then see if you all together can talk to other family members. And if that don't work, then try family counseling. I think in the black community, I think we are now starting to realize that we need to talk about issues, and that we can no longer hide those issues, and we need to deal with them,
Mhm.
unless they're going to confront us. So I would say, start having conversations. It's not about trying to hurt anyone's feelings. It's not about putting out anyone's business. But what we don't confront will confront us, even if we're
Mhm.
50, 60, or 70. That's why you have a lot of older people right now that they're messed up. They hid those things for years and didn't want nobody to talk about it and all of that. And then that's why you have so many angry people, because people are not confronting their issues. Family members are not dealing with things. They're hiding behind it. That's why society is dysfunctional.
Mhm. Mhm.
We
Because
have a
there's
lot
the
of
fun.
dysfunctional people.
What
Hmm.
what types of conversations are you having with Braden? He's 12 years old, so, and he's on the cusp of becoming a young man. So what are the types of conversations that you're having with him as a young man about the type of man? I mean, I know they say, well, a woman can't talk to a boy about manhood or whatever, but this is your son. And with
Hmm.
the sum total of your experiences with men, what are you saying to your son?
Well, one of the things that I started doing with Braden is talking to him about how he should treat a woman. Like, one of the things I tell him, that he should never put his hands on a girl that is in school or anywhere else. Never ever do that. That's
Mhm.
unacceptable. Then when we go out to eat, I would talk to him about, I would say, Braden, one day you're gonna be a young man, and you're gonna take, a girl out to date. I mean, on a date, and this is how you should do it. So those are the conversations we are gradually having right now, he and
Yeah.
I. And he's such a, and you know what? I'm not just saying this because he's my son, but he's such a sweet child. I think he inherited that from me and my mother. He has
Mhm.
that characteristic trait. Hmm.
So, have you talked to him about what happened in your marriage? And this was before he was born, of course.
No, no, I haven't. I haven't. And then you know what? He may read my book one day and he is even gonna see some things about his father that that may be disappointing. But
But would you rather him read the book or you have a conversation with him?
I'm gonna have a conversation with him when he's old, when he's a lot older. But I don't think
Mhm.
it's like appropriate. It's not appropriate right now at his age for me to have certain conversations with him
Okay.
in terms of with that.
Mhm. So what would you say then to what do you deem the right age to begin those conversations for women with their sons about how to treat a lady, what not to do, what is expected of you as a man in the absence of a man having those types of conversations with him? What do you say to another single mother who has a son?
Well, I think well he's going to be 13 this year, so I mean like I was just telling you I'm already having conversations with him about keeping his hands to himself and never hitting a young girl. I don't care if he's just playing with them. I tell him those things. Don't you ever do that, and don't call her out her name. Don't use degrading or disrespectful names. Those things. Um, I'm having that type of conversation with him now. But I was saying earlier, there are some things when he gets older that I will have to share with him
Mhm,
regarding his his father, of course, if he asks me, that is, but I would say since he's going to be 13, and I would say to the other mothers, start now. And even I have to talk to him about, I shouldn't have to do this, but I have to talk to him about his body parts, and what not to allow people to do to him, and what things like that. You have to have those conversations too.
mhm. What are you interested in being married again, having another relationship? Well,
Uh,
where are you emotionally and mentally in that regard?
Well, absolutely. I am interested in being married again. I look forward to that. I don't want any more children though.
Hmm.
So
Hey, that's
I'm just
okay
being,
too. So,
yeah, I'm just being honest. I don't want any more kids. But
what would you do differently? Like, should you marry again, or when you marry again, what's going to be different? Or how do you think you would approach it differently than you did in your first marriage? Because after all, you were so young.
I,
So
well, let me tell you what I'm gonna do differently. I'm not gonna go looking. I'm gonna be
mhm,
found. I
okay.
think that, yeah, I think a lot of times as women we go looking. And then the thing is, honestly, even when I got into um after I separated from my ex-husband, I think I got into another relationship too quickly. A lot of times we're not even healed from
Mhm,
that past relationship, and then we're going out and looking for other more love, and then we're looking for love with other toxic people. So as I stated on another show this week, toxicity clashes together. I'm toxic, you're toxic, and guess what happens? None of us really can pour into each other. So, um, and then I'm gonna take my time. I'm not gonna rush anything because I want to get to know that person well, and I want them to get to know me well. And then
mhm,
two, what I don't want to be so quick to share the things I've went through unless that person so happens to pick up my book, because I think men take advantage of us too when we be so quick to share what we've been through. And some of them, sometimes they will read it or they'll know it because you told them, and then I think they end up doing the same thing to you that you told them that you don't like or you've been through. So I think we talk too much sometimes. We gotta save some things. It's like we're trying to sell ourselves in a short period of time. We don't have to do that, or we're trying to say to them, well, this is what I went through, and I don't want to deal with this and this, that, and the other.
So,
If
so
that person,
you advise that that she eases into or only releases information based on what he asks? What are you saying directly? Because the whole purpose of doing these shows are to give people, tips and so what are
yeah,
you suggesting for
well,
someone who may have come from a challenging past and
mhm,
all of us have had to experience this one way or the other. What are you saying to that woman when begin dating this man?
mhm.
Do this, don't do that. What are you saying?
Well, I I'm not saying that you can't share certain things, but I think sometimes we share too much.
Mhm.
And I think
Okay.
that's what I did in my past relationships. If I, of course, if I'm asked a certain question, I'm gonna be honest. But I don't
Mhm.
have to. It's almost like when I meet you the first night, I don't have to tell you the first night that I was in an abusive relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I just we're just having a conversation. So that's what I mean when I say about sharing too soon or too quick. Let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm saying. I'm
Mhm.
gonna give yeah, we're gonna talk about we might decide to talk about family dynamics and everything, but that'll be way on in the relationship. I don't need to say, oh, well, and we're out to dinner, and this is our first dinner, and I'm saying, oh, well, I don't want to deal with this because I'm a victim of domestic violence, things like that. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
You
Hmm.
may not get a second date. You probably
Yeah,
scare him
but
away if
right,
you
because
do that.
I may not, and those are the kind of things I'm talking about. Because he might say, "Ooh, well, I don't know if I want to deal with her because she sound hurt," and then
Mhm. Mhm.
so
Mhm.
no,
So you you're at a space where you think you're healthy and whole emotionally to be open to a new relationship.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Now,
So go ahead.
gra- now I was saying, now, granted, since my divorce and my other relationship, I had some jokers who tried to play with me, but like I say, my tolerance, I don't have time to play games, so I immediately cut that.
So if there was something when we talked earlier and you were saying like it was as if when you were dating these guys, it was that as if something was printed across your forehead. If there was something printed across your forehead today, what would it say?
I'm a worthy woman, and I know who I am.
All right. All right. So that's what the man sees that steps to you. That's what
Yes.
he sees across your forehead.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yes.
I love it. Absolutely love it. What Okay, so now let's talk about some fun things. What are some of your favorite things and what can somebody do to get on your good side? I like to ask people that.
What can someone? Well, to just be nice. I don't like mean people. Um, Once I see you, and then sometimes some people be nice too because they have a hidden agenda. But just be genuine. Just be who you are.
Just be
That's
authentic.
that's some of the things I know. Yeah.
What is your pet peeve? Like what can you just absolutely gets on your nerves? What is your pet peeve?
Oh, my pet peeve is when I either text or call someone and they don't answer and they never call back or never respond back. I think that is so rude. And not only is it rude, it's very inconsiderate.
Mhm. So if you text somebody, they better text you back. They better
Oh,
text you back or call you back.
yeah, and they might not do it right away, but at least let me know what's going on. I think
Mhm.
and I think it's just rude and inconsiderate when because I try not to do that to people.
Yeah.
I try to do unto others as I would want things done to me.
Okay, so let's talk Bahamian things now in our lightning round. Let's talk Bahamian things. Some of choices. If you had a choice between I always go for this Kool-Aid Punch and Coke, what would it be?
It'll definitely be gourmet punch.
All right, now loving you already. Coconut tart and pineapple tart.
Coconut tart.
Listen, me right here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Shrimp or conch?
Ooh, conch. Empty day, honey. I love conch. Any day. I want some now.
Okay, shrimp. All right. Let's say if you had a choice to drink, what else? If you had an opportunity to drink lemonade or coconut water.
Um, ooh, that's a hard one. Lemonade or coconut water? Lemonade.
Lemonade. Okay. Okay. And what's your favorite color?
Royal blue. And if I could see, know your worth.
Or worth?
Royal blue jacket. That's it.
Royal blue. Is there a particular reason why royal blue?
Okay, well, I am in a sorority, Zeta Phi
Okay.
Beta, Zeta Phi
Okay.
Beta, and their color is royal blue. So
Okay.
I yeah.
So shout out to the Zeta Phi Betas out there. Okay. And what else do I want to say? How do you want to be remembered? I mean, it's kind of you're still young, but how do you want to be remembered?
Oh man, I want to be remembered as someone who gave it their all. Who died empty, like Dr. Miles Monroe would say. Um, I want to be remembered as someone who never gave up and who did everything that she was purposely put here to do. I want to be remembered as a woman who impacted lives. Um, I want people to still be talking about how I impacted their lives years after I'm gone. I want my legacy to carry on. You know what? It's so funny because I'm only 42, but I'm thinking about you know, what do I want to see? Well, what do I want to happen and when I'm gone? I want my books because I'm gonna write a lot of other books. I want my books to be all over. I want my grandchildren and my great grandchildren to say, well, we heard that our grandmother formed a ministry called Know Your Worth, and it was from it catered toward women and their self-worth, and and I want them to say, and we heard she breaks generational curses and things like that. And I want Braden to just talk about what type of mom he had, and things like that. Like I said,
Yeah.
I want to take up space in this in the world. That's
Mhm.
why I'm here. I'm not here by accident. I'm here by purpose.
I like
So
that. I want to take up space. So let's talk about um, Braden. You mentioned him. What do you want Braden to tell people? Like specifically, if somebody comes and says to Braden, "What type of woman is your mother?" What do you want him to say about you?
well, I'm gonna tell you what he says now. He always says, um, my mom is beautiful. My mom loves me. And you know what is so funny? Braden, he markets my brand. We went to McDonald's a few days ago because that's what he likes. And a lady was reading because I have Know Your Worth on the back of my car and my website. A lady was reading it, and Braden was marketing my brand. He was saying, yes, that's my mom's store, shop knowyourword.com. She sells t-shirts, mouse pads, pens, mugs. He's telling her all of this. And she was so amazed. And she said, wow, your son just sold your brand to me. And I was like, wow, that's because Braden sees there's so much consistency with me and the brand, and he's even that's why he sells it, and he's a boy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
he's
That's
done that
beautiful.
twice.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
There, let's see. Reading a couple of more comments here. Your mom says, whatever we do not confront, it will confront us face on one day. Okay. Job says the story starts at home. So we need to teach our boys to become good men.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Auntie Leela says, yes, a conversation with him is best. Don't let him read it in a book. Um, what else? She says, thank God for his Grammy Gayleen, who teaches him the ways of the Lord. Yeah, listen, I can tell you one thing. Your family is very supportive because they're here, right here doing it and cheering you along.
Yeah, they are. They really
That's
are. I love
important
my
to have it.
family.
How important is it good? Let's talk about that in our last few moments. But how important, even after going through the domestic abuse and et cetera, how important is having that strong support system?
Oh man, it's very important because when you don't have a strong support system, you feel so alone. And you need people to talk to. You need people who's gonna hold your hand and counsel you along the way and say to you that it's gonna be all right. You need that. And oh man, mom's family is they're amazing. And also, some of my father's family, they are too. Mom's family been supporting me from day one with Know Your Worth. Yep,
Hmm.
and her. And me and mom, we've been staying together for a while, and we lean on each other for support. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's why we're so tight. But and I'm very
Well,
grateful.
grateful for that type of support. That's
Hmm.
just awesome. Well, good night, Kayla. Just checking in, Kayla, and good night, Janice. Good to have you guys here. But this brings us to an end of this particular conversation. Latanya, thank you so much. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your experiences and the tips. I think that is so important of
Hmm.
what women need to do prepare should they have to leave an abusive situation. And I
Hmm.
really hope that you would, those of you who are out there, would share this live stream because I know every time I do these types of shows that people are in my inbox and asking for information and etc. And so that's why I'm so blessed to be able to present this type of platform each week so
Hmm.
that people will be able to hear from overcomers, because it's
Hmm.
not like we're just sharing a story, but we're sharing stories of people who have overcome, and they're in that place in their lives where they want to be a blessing to others by sharing their testimony and helping them to overcome whatever challenging situations they may be in. So thank you to all of you who have tuned in tonight. As always, it's always a pleasure having you to swerve with me. Okay, let me read this last comment from your mom. It says, the late Evelyn Burrows, who I grew up with, instilled godly values in me. I am imparting that into my grandson by the grace of God. Good night, Irma. Thank you for tuning in as well. And oh, Leila, Auntie Leila says, Uncle Javi says, great job. He's proud of you.
Oh
He's
wow, thank you very much. Woo.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for swerving with me tonight, Latanya. May God grant you your heart's desire as you continue to forge and to teach women their worth and to show them, more importantly, by your example of how
Right.
they can overcome any challenging situation that they may encounter. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Join me again next Sunday, 8 o'clock. We're going to be talking to some men. And by the way, if you're out there and you know people that are at a healthy place in their life where they're willing to share their scars and speak their truths, just refer them to me. I'll be happy to present this platform to them. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. Have a great week, guys, and make sure you tell somebody else about Swerve with me. Good night.
Good night.